Welcome to MacroCode. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. So as you can see, we have our help desk management system. So we are going to proceed with our today's video. So as you can see here, this is our email address and password. So if I just click sign in, it takes me to the landing page. So you have the number of tickets per category, number of tickets per category again, with now the different graphs. Then you have the number of tickets per subcategory and status. Then you have all these recent tickets. So on our navigation sidebar, you can see we have the recent tickets, we have the assigned tickets, we have the resolved tickets, the closed tickets, ticket comments, the tickets subcategories, and even the categories. You have the audit trails, and you also have the system users, the system codes. So on system codes, we'll see that these are gender, marital status, priority. So we are actually grouping them. Then under system code details, we are now trying to provide the details. So you see here we have now the male and female for the group called gender. Then you have the system roles. So these are all roles within our system. Then you have the departments, system task, and even the user profiles. So in our previous video, we were able to see how you can assign a system task, which is kind of an action or a module or a sub-module to a system role. So these roles will be assigned to users. So when we were creating users previously, we did not assign them to roles. So if you add a new user, you see you just provide the first name, middle name, last name, gender, email address, phone number, city, country, username, and even the password. So on today's video, I want us to modify this. So I want us to introduce something. Whenever you are creating a user, you must assign them to a particular role. So let's just go to our user details. So on users, so there's one particular field, there's one property here that you're going to add. So on our application user, we are going to add something called role. So here we are going to add something called role ID. So I'll just say here role ID. And this role ID is actually from our identity roles. So here I'll just say system. So identity role. Then here we'll just call this role. So once we have that, so there's some items that we had done. So you see here we have the country, city. So we are going to change this and gender. But for the gender, since this is something that we have, we can actually change this. So we'll just say to be int, and this should borrow from our system code detail. So I'll just say here, system code detail. And we are going to call this gender ID, then this should be gender. So if we've done that, I'm sure there is something going to happen on our application. We are going to get some errors. If I'm not wrong, I think everything is looking fine for now. So this is, yeah, so we might have some issues. But after we've done that, we need to add migrations. So let's just rebuild our project to ensure that we are all fine. So if there's an error, then we are going to address it. So for those who are new to this channel and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We notice 90% of you guys are watching our videos and you have not subscribed. So if you're one of them, please consider subscribing. So you can see you have an error here. So this is the create user. So here you'll be having input gender. Input gender here will be, so let me just comment this out. So let me comment this out. And because I've commented that out, I'm going to do something small. So on our application user, let's just have this as nullable so that it doesn't give us problems. But that is what you should have done before even doing anything. So since we have these now here, we can now try to build, and we should be able to now have a clean code, and we should add now our migrations. So if we add our migrations, then we should be good to update our tables. That is cool. So we've updated, we've added these two fields and also this role ID. So let's just go to tools, NuGet Package Manager console, and you're going to add migrations. So here we are going to add the migration for. So we say add migration, and here we'll be saying updated user details. So if you press enter, our migration file should be generated and we should be good to update our database. So you can see our migration file has been generated and we are now okay. So I'm going to now update our database. So I'll just say update database. So if we press that, then our database will be created with now the additional columns, the gender ID, and we'll also have the role ID. So if this is done, then we should now also update our view. So you see the build succeeded. So that is, we have an error. So the alter table statement conflicted, foreign key, a conflict occurred in database. So what is the issue here? We've added a column that is not nullable. So let's just try to make this nullable. So if you do that, then it makes that nullable. So because we've added that, we need to remove migration. So you can just do remove migration. So that will remove the migration that we've just added so that we rectify the changes that you've done. So that is now the challenge of updating the tables when the data is already there. So if I just do this, I'll now add our migration. So if we add the migration, it's because we are actually designing this thing as we think and go along. But in the real world scenario, you should have your models ready before even doing this particular kind of work that you are doing. So I'll just do that, then we now update our database. So if we just update our database, then everything should be okay. So because there are some data in our tables, that is why it is actually raising the error because it is not nullable. So there we go. So you can see everything is okay. So we've been able now to add our role and gender to our table. So to change everything now, whenever we were creating users, we need to ensure that we have a view bag for gender. So you can actually borrow some of the details that you are doing here. So you see this? So this is how you do it. So if you just go to users under create, we can actually do view bag, then you say gender ID, then you select system code details where code is gender. So you'll be having the male and female. Then the next thing also, we need the roles. So here I'll just do the same thing and I'll also say here role ID, then here I'll say roles. So then the only thing that I need now on the roles is actually names. So here I'll just do that and I can, so here I'll do to list async. Then here I can say ID, then I also say name. So this is to list. I'll just say to list and I can now have ID and names. And I now have my role ID. So this role ID, we are going to use them now when we are creating users. So on our create, instead of typing gender, male and female, we are going to now have a drop down. So let's borrow some of the drop down options from our other sections. So I'm going to copy this. So under create, I'll just paste this here for gender and I'll call this gender ID. So this is also gender ID. So this is also gender ID and this is gender. So I can remove this. So then you can say here select gender. So we are now providing, then let's remove this. And our view bag now here is for gender ID. So these SP items, view bag, gender ID is what we have under users. This one, you see, gender ID is what we now have here. So then we now have, so if we select this, if you go to roles, we need to introduce now another column. So which I'm going to introduce another field here. We are going to call it role. So this will be role ID. So then I'll choose here role ID, then I'll have here role ID. Then I can say select role. So since we have these two, on our user creation and our controller, that is under our user controller, we are going to assign these two properties. So you see gender is now gender ID. So this will be gender ID and this will be gender ID. Then we need also to assign now the role. So I'll say here role ID, then I'll say here role ID. So if we launch our app now, we should now be able to create our user with the role and even select, instead of having select gender or typing in the gender, we can select the gender from the list of options that we have in our application. So you should always minimize standard options being typed in by users, for example, gender, marital status, cities, so that because you'll be having very bad data. So if you standardize those options, then you'll be having a very good data because you are the one now prompting them to select the options. So let's just sign in and see some of the details that we have. So if you just sign in, then we go to user roles and even users, we should be able to see some of those things. So if you go to system users and add user, you can see now under role ID, you can see we have the roles. And then under gender, we have male and female. So you can change the naming here. Instead of role and gender ID, remove the ID part. We just have the correct naming. So let's just provide the names here. You can say display name, and we can do here role name. Then you can also have the gender one. Instead of just saying gender, we do gender. Let's just do gender. So we can relaunch our app again. So for those who are watching this video and you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing, like our video, comment down below. And as we said, guys, 90% of you are watching our videos and you have not subscribed. And in case you need the source code, you can also claim the source code using the link down below, which actually goes a long way in ensuring that you are supporting our channel and even boosting our creativity. So as you can see, we have our system users. So if I just go and add, now we have our role name and we have the gender. So we can say, we can add another user called Macro Junior. Then you can say Champe. Then this is, say male. The role is ICT manager. Email, you can provide that. That is the password. City is Nairobi. Country is Kenya. And you can say this is the password. So you can say admin 123. So if we create it, there's something not happening. So if you go to our add users, so let's just go to our add users. So here on our create. So this is our create. So I'm going to just click here. So if we just say create, that is our breakpoint. And you can see you have all these details that you've just provided. So there's something that is not happening. So you see we have our role ID is null and our gender ID is also null. So why is this null? So we have our role ID as null. So where is it? Gender ID is null, and we have our role ID as null. So I want us to go back to our user create. So here we said here sp select roles. So let's just do ID is equals to role ID. Then you can say this is ID equals to gender ID. So we have that this is role ID, the value here, that is it. So let's try again and see. So I'm going to relaunch this, then we try again. So we need to ensure that whenever we are selecting the gender and also the role, we have those particular options. That is the male and female, and also you have the role. So let's just go back to our app. So going to sign in. Then whenever we sign in, we go directly to the system users. So I'll just go to system users, then add new user. So I'll just select, let's call macro, we'd call it junior, then you call this champe, then this is a mail, say this is mail, and this is ICT manager, this is our email address, then this is our user, can call that. Then if we create, let's just confirm. We now have our ID. You see, we have gender ID and we now have our role. So if we proceed, our application should save without any issue. So let's just confirm if that was done. So let's just go back to our app under system users. So here we should be able to have macro code. So where is it? So there's something, you see here, there's some details that were not saved. So let's just try again. Macro champe, then you say here, yeah, I think the issue is, I've seen the issue. Called champe. The issue is actually the email. So here let's just call email champe. So then you can call this is the ICT manager, city is that, username as well, let's call it backend champe. Then you can have a same name as password. So you should be able to validate our password so that we don't get such an error as well. So if I just now create this one, so if I just say create, then if we hover here, you'll see we have the city, country, email confirmed, full name, gender, and you have the role. So if we proceed, let's just go up to here. So if we hit there and proceed, we should get succeeded as the result. But you see, there is something that is throwing an error. It is saying, so let's just confirm, you see, password must have at least 1 digit. So that is the validation issue that we need to handle. So password must have at least 1 digit. So you can provide the digit there. If we save again and proceed, you'll notice that this is now. So if we just proceed here, we have password issue again. It is saying password must have at least 1 alphanumeric character. So let's just do that. Then I can just do @ So if we save again, let's proceed there, and you can see it is now succeeded. So if I proceed, our user is saved. So you see our user has been saved, and we now have macro code, champe, and you have the ID number. So you can also update some of the details here, but you can see the gender is not being displayed. Why? So we should be able to see the gender here. So the reason for that now, if we go to index, here, we just do here index, then I'll just do .include, then I'll have x dot, so I'll just do role, then I can also do gender. So this one will just do gender here, and that is now okay. So if we go to now our system users index, we can now say here gender dot name. So I'll do dot name. Then I can also add another field for. So this is gender dot name. So why is it not handling that? So it says this should be description. Sorry, yes. So we can also add another one for role, so that you're able to see the role. So I'll say here role. Then I can say here name. So if I just do that, I'll just also update here to role ID. So if we do that, then we should be able to see now the gender and the role for each of the particular users. So let's just try to update and see. So if we launch our app now, we will be having our gender and role. So we have been able now to address the issue of assigning users to roles. So, and we'll be now also trying to, and we've seen how you can assign roles to rights. So the next thing is we now try to make these a bit more easier. So let's just see how our app now looks like. So if we sign in, I'm going to update some of the details. So if you go to the dashboard, we will be having our system users. And here, you'll notice that we have macro, champe, and ID. We don't have these two. So what could have happened? So let's just try to add another user, then see. So I'm going to say here champe, then here champe, then I'll say here this is Mel, this is finance manager. I'll say champe@gmail.com. Then I'll have my phone number here. I'll do that, and I say here champe, and I'll have here, I'll say I'll provide my password. Then if I create, let's just see, do you have the role here? So let's just proceed. So the registered user, let's see what the details that are being supplied here. So you see we have the registered user and the role ID. And you also have the gender. So we should now be expecting to have our, so if we proceed, if this is succeeded, you see, we should be expecting to see our details of the user. So you see, we have this male and our role here. So that is out. So we can add another user. So let's just remove our breakpoint. We can add another user. If we just go to add another user, we should be able to now save. So let's say champe2. So we say champe2. This is female. We say this guy is an HR officer. We say champe2@gmail.com. Then phone number, we just provide some phone number there. City, say Nairobi. Then a username is champe2. Then password is champe2 2030. Then if we create, you see, this is now our user called champe2. This is the phone number, this is the email address, and we have the gender and we have the role. So from users, we can tell the role of the user and even the gender. So I think that is something very simple, and I want us to leave it there for today. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing, and see you in our next video. Bye.